off again.
No, you are. Let's get you back up and going before we announce our presence. There you are. You're back.
Okay, I think, Rick, you can call the meeting to order.
All right. So this is a notice hearing of the Ethics Board to take public comment with respect to the complaint filed by Ms. Signorino. My name is Rick Basinski. I'm currently chairman of the Board of Ethics. Let's take a roll call for the other members. Mr. Breen, are you online?
I am here.
And Mr. Mann, are you online?
Present.
So along with the agenda, a proposed opinion of the board was attached, and the purpose of this next part of the meeting is to allow for public comment. Courtney, can we have you allow one at a time, please, for comments?
Yes, we're going to go with the phone number ending in 4516. You have the floor for 3 minutes. If you could unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Martin Steiger calling. I'm a park resident. I have a public comment. It doesn't regard the complaint that's being discussed tonight. It's more general regarding the ethics board. I don't know if the board wants to hear my comment now or perhaps later, so I figured I'd ask first.
Martin, I think it's fine to go ahead now if that's okay with you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jake. I called back. All right, let me back up. I called into the ethics review board meeting back in February and made several suggestions regarding the proposed procedural rules that were on the agenda at that point. Several of the board members had complimentary things to say about my ideas and indicated that although they were planning on adopting the rules as proposed that evening so they could get something on the books, they were hoping to incorporate some of my ideas into the rules in the very near future. I want to thank the members for the nice things they had to say, especially board member Mann. I don't consider myself an expert in procedural rules by any means, and I think Jake can attest to that. But the foundation for my knowledge of procedure was laid by the very first law professor that I ever had, Professor Larry Mann, who taught my civil procedure class back in 2001. So I was thrilled when he, my civil procedure professor, seemed to like my suggestions about procedure. Thanks again, Professor Mann. Anyways, it's been 8 months since that first meeting, and I know it's been a busy and hectic year in the park with storms and flooding and elections and everything else, but I was hoping the board, or perhaps Mr. Howlett, could talk a bit about where things stand with those proposed changes that I had made. Are they still under consideration? Is there a time frame for adopting them? Things like that. Thank you.
Jake, may I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Steiger, for your question, and I'm a little nonplussed about that because we did incorporate, I believe, all or almost all of the changes you proposed and formally adopted amended rules back in May. So I will have to follow up and find out what's been published in the public record because it doesn't sound like they must be available to the public to see. But indeed, we did take into account and make changes to the proposed rules based on your comments.
Was there a public meeting held? I don't want to get into a back and forth, but I was just curious if there was a public meeting held to discuss and vote on those comments, because I was under the impression the last meeting was back in February.
There was not a public meeting held. I think we voted among ourselves to adopt the revised rules, and I thought they were published, but if they're not, I will certainly follow up to make sure they are.
Yeah, I'll have to go back, Rick and Martin, and look at the procedure. I know we went through some draft revisions that incorporated some of those comments. Any vote on that, I think, would probably have to be at a public meeting. So I think they were workshopped and incorporated into a draft, and I'll just have to go back and check my notes and see where that stood. But
Okay.
your point's well taken, and they were addressed and incorporated. If it hasn't been finalized yet, we can take a look at that and remedy that.
All right, we're going to do the next public comment. It's going to be Anna's iPhone. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and your comment.
Hi, thank you. This is Anna Signorino. I am the Grosse Pointe Park resident who filed the complaint against Nick Seisland, and had some back and forth with Jake regarding the committee and the process steps. But I do have a formal comment that I wrote out that I would like to read. I'm asking the Ethics Board to revisit their opinion that this complaint is outside of their scope and to hold a public hearing regarding the action by Nick Seisland to suspend my park pass for 3 months, ending December 15th, 2021. It is the role of the Ethics Committee to oversee that the governing officials honor the public trust through personal and professional integrity and ethical conduct, making certain these agents are impartial and responsible to the people. Section 2-1-1. The city manager made a unilateral decision to deprive me of my privilege to enjoy the city parks because he heard from one of his employees that another city employee said that I, Anna Signorino, the Grosse Pointe Park resident, said and did something which was not true at all. This is a prime example of he said, she said, but rather than acting with the slightest due diligence by attempting to verify the accuracy of the alleged misconduct, by watching the video recording from Point Alarm, having a meeting with all parties to discuss the situation and review the facts, and then considering my past behaviors while enjoying the parks for 50 times over the last 14 months that we've lived here, and then considering other past disciplinary actions to consider a reasonable consequence for possible behavior modification, City Manager Mr. Seisland immediately sent 3 armed police officers to my door to hand deliver the hastily written suspension letter, who had then said that if I attempted to enter either park, they would arrest me for trespassing. It is my firm belief that City Manager did not act as a responsible agent of the people, but instead abused the power of his office to intimidate me and retaliate against me for publicly questioning his professional competency and to keep me out of Patterson Park during the grand opening of the dog park. The opinion I received only 2 days ago, although it was written on October 7th, reads that the Ethics Board hears complaints regarding government agents who use public resources for personal gain. Did Mr. Seisland use his office to expel me from the park so I wouldn't publicly embarrass him? And did he deploy 3 police officers to deliver this message? The opinion also reads that the committee is not a special master or court of appeals, and this issue should be brought before the city council. However, because this complaint specifically involves a city employee, he is therefore protected by governmental immunity in the courts, while our city council, some of who are on the line tonight, the governing body of Grosse Pointe Park, they have refused to hear me. The Board of Ethics is the only avenue that I can take to present any evidence in an attempt to reinstate my park pass and encourage the city to enact policy standards regarding future suspension and revocation of resident park passes. In light of these points, I'm asking that the members of this committee reconsider their preliminary opinion and schedule a formal hearing to discuss the breach of ethical integrity and conduct by City Manager, Mr. Nick Seisland. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comment.
That's the end of public comment. No one else is called.
No one else is called?
Correct.
Oh, I would like to speak. How do I get in the queue? I'm not familiar with the Zoom here.
You just need to state your name and raise your hand.
Okay, let me see if I can raise my hand. I don't know how to raise my hand.
Or you can just speak.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So this is John Signorino. I visited the website for this new council, and it indicates that they are empowered to investigate any ethical concern. And when I think about what that means, you know, I looked at some professional code of ethics. You know, there's one for lawyers, for doctors. There's even one for the International City and County Managers Association, ICMA. And when you look at what is embodied in these code of ethics, it is beyond just financial irresponsibility and embezzlement. Most of these guidelines consider within the realms of ethics acting in ways that don't undermine public confidence, having the highest standards of ethical conduct, acting without discrimination on the principles or based on the principles of justice and equity, fairness and impartiality. So when I read this preliminary opinion, it seems to be unnecessarily narrowing the scope of this committee, in that regardless of the present dispute, in the future, there can be many questions of ethics that this board is removing from its consideration. And I think that if we really want to have a board that is helping foster public confidence in our government and in our officials, that it needs to have a wider scope of authority, and to limit it merely to matters of using public resources for personal gain, I think kind of defeats the purpose of having a council like this. So my public comment is that the scope of this ethics committee should be to consider more than just using public resources for personal gain, and that would further the mission of enhancing trust in the public government and allowing citizens a proper avenue to raise what are real ethical concerns. Thank you.
Jake,
Is that the end of the public comments?
Yes, that's the end of public comments.
I think if it's appropriate, Jake, it would be appropriate to just comment on both John and Anna's concerns about the scope of the committee.
Yeah, that's up to you and the board how you want to handle any kind of response, but it's not appropriate or inappropriate. You're welcome to do it.
And you know, and I'm flying without having discussed this with the other two members, but I just want to make an observation that what the jurisdiction of the committee should be, or the board should be, is not up to the board to decide. It's what's in the ordinance. It was City Council who created this board, and the opinion here, you know, is not meant to be an adjudication on the merits. Ms. Signorino may very well have a valid concern here, and I think the appropriate place for her to take that is to City Council. The concern that we have is we're limited by what we perceive City Council authorized us to do, and our interpretation of the ethics ordinance speaks to self-dealing or other actions that would cause the public to be concerned about the integrity of an official, but not to be a board of appeal for every decision someone in the city makes. Of course, somebody will be upset if that decision is contrary to their expectations, but to put us in the position that we should be reviewing every official's decision, I think asks too much of the board, and is certainly not what the council was expecting us to do.
Well, this is Larry Mann. Rick, while you didn't discuss that ahead of time, that's exactly my sentiment.
Okay. Having heard all of the public comments, I would then call for a vote on adopting the opinion that was sent in draft as complaint 2021-01.
So just real quick, from a procedural standpoint, we should put a motion on the table to adopt the opinion in a second, and then there's an opportunity for discussion, and then call for the vote.
Okay, thank you. So I would move to adopt the draft opinion that was circulated as Board of Ethics complaint 2021-01.
Support.
And I would vote in favor of adopting that.
Well, I think,
is there
any
any discussion first?
I'm sorry.
Call the vote?
Thanks, Jake.
No problem. It's admittedly it's our first one, so
yeah, kind of learning the ropes here.
Courtney, if you could call the question and the roll call vote.
Rick Pazinski?
Yes, I approve the opinion.
David Breen?
yes.
Lawrence Mann?
Yes.
Jake Howlett?
I am a non-voting member, but thank you.
All right. Motion passes.
So the opinion that was circulated as draft will be adopted as the formal opinion of the Ethics Board.
Okay, and then so now we can move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is adjournment. You can just vote by ayes and nays on that. We need a motion to adjourn in a second, though.
I move to adjourn. Support.
Any opposed? All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Again, I appreciate the public interest and comments, and appreciation to the other members of the board for attending this evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.